Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joffrey Falk, and for those of you that I have not had a chance to meet, I am a product manager here at Dexter and Janey. Now, before we get started, I want to take care of those usual housekeeping items. You're looking at a picture of the GoToWebinar attendee interface, which is made up of these two parts. The viewer here on the left allows you to see my computer screen. On the right is the control panel, and this is how you can participate today. So let's take a look a little bit more into that. First, I want to point out that this orange arrow, this is what you use to open and close the control panel. Next, the next section that's important is the audio mode. You can either listen to me using your computer speakers, or you could use the telephone and dial in. If you do dial in, make sure you put in your audio pin. That way we can keep everybody on mute and everybody will hear the call. As we go through the presentation today, feel free to type in some questions here in the question box. This will help me direct the conversation we're going to have to the places that you are most interested in. And also just know that we have a typical frequently asked questions document that we'll send to everybody at the end of by the end of the week that goes over these same types of questions we typically get. Okay, so let's switch gears and go over to Spectrum. So here we are. This is Spectrum version 14, and I've logged in. And by the way, this is just I'm using Mozilla Firefox today. You log into a URL and you just sign in with your credentials. And what's really exciting about this is that by using a web browser, we're not dependent on any operating system. You know, over the years, we have been more of a Windows shop, and now we are more of a, well, now we're agnostic, and so our users can run Spectrum on anything from, you know, on Macintosh, you know, the Apple products, as well as good old Windows and that type of stuff. So it's kind of exciting for us that we don't have to be locked down into any one operating system. Now, as we go through this presentation today, there's some objectives that I want you to be aware of as we went through this. A couple things, you know, we wanted to live in the web browser. We wanted to live in the web, and you know, everything is moving in that direction. You know, we bank online, we buy stuff online, etc. So with that said, we support the four big internet browsers, so Microsoft's Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, and Apple Safari. Now, a couple other things that I just want to point out is that we're using by going to the web, we're able to use the latest and greatest of technologies. So we're still using Microsoft SQL to control our database. We are using technologies that are things like we're using Java, JavaScript, and this thing called Ajax technologies, which I'll show you when we actually get there because it's a pretty cool thing. Okay, so when the user logs into Spectrum, you're going to start out here at the dashboard. Now, this dashboard can be configured in a variety of ways, and you can push it out to your users. A couple things just to point out. Any of these things that talk about have my in them, these are related to me. These are my jobs with cash flow and negative cash flow. These are my jobs that I'm working on, my unapproved invoices. If it's something that is more of that doesn't have the word my, these are all of my heavy equipment that are overdue. They need some kind of maintenance done. You can have a variety of these apps. You can actually write your own. These are just SQL views that we can attach here on the dashboard. And so a lot of our existing clients, they have, we offer classes where they've learned to write these SQL views to create the type of apps that they want to see. Now, one other thing that's kind of exciting is that when you're on the dashboard, when I'm sitting here, it does not count against my license count. Spectrum is sold on a concurrent license basis, and so if you have a 10-user system, by sitting here, we're not using any of those 10 seats. So the goal is that people can log in, get some information, and if everything is where it needs to be, or if everything is fine, they can log out and go to the job site or whatever they need to do. If there is something that needs to be addressed, they can go ahead and select the item on the dashboard, and they'll be drilled into the system to where they'll get that information. So here we're looking at my job cash flow. This job 300 says King County Highway 18 is about $500,000 negative cash flow. Now everybody has dashboards, but when I click on my dashboard, it takes me into the system to the page where I can see where that net cash flow number is coming from. And I can see that, well, I've spent some money. I've only received about 60 grand from the client, and I can see I've got another, 303 outstanding. So I'm still in a negative cash flow position, but I'm waiting on the receivable to be paid. So at least I understand what's going on. So our dashboards take you places. So as you click on them, they will take you to the most logical place so that you can address the issue that you have going on right there. Now, next, a couple of things I want to point out is over here we've got favorites. These are just like your internet favorites. You click on them and you'll go to that screen. If I click vendor invoices, it'll open up a new Spectrum tab here, and I'm in vendor invoice entry and I can enter an invoice. Likewise, you'll see over here we've got this bar. We call these info bars. Now the info bar will change depending on what you're doing. So if we're looking at something that may be a subcontract, subcontracts are really a combination of the job and a vendor that's also a subcontractor. And so notice my info bar has changed to relate or reflect that I have these other options. So when I select this subcontractor, notice my info bar provides some information about the vendor, and then I can look down here, here's some stuff about the subcontractor. So not only are these informational, but they're also navigational. So with a single click, I can actually go look at the subcontract billings. I can go look at the summary page for this subcontract, and I can see what is outstanding. I see that I owe them $1 in the current, and I have retention of 260 bucks. Okay. So these job info bars we're really excited about because, again, it allows us to make the system seamless. We were trying to anticipate where you're wanting to go. When you, say, click on something like billing, and we click on the contracts, which is the combination of both the job and our customer, the info bars change, and now we're looking at the customer info bar and the contract info bar. So again, these make it very simple and a consistent way to navigate throughout the system. So I'm going to start at the top of the job info bar. I kind of want to just go through some of these screens. So first, on our construction projects, we have the job dashboard, and this is a snapshot for just this one project. You can see our project log documents. You can see I've got 7 RFIs that are overdue, and I've got 23 that are due beyond a week. I can scroll down and I can look at my gain fade chart, and you can see where my projected cost, the cost of the project went up, and then you can see I was a couple months behind getting the change order for it. But at least I got the change order so that we didn't really have profit fade. The progress bar charts, basically you're seeing the percent of complete. You can see that billing, I'm 0.84% complete billed, and my costs are 1.55. We have the same kind of thing with equipment hours and labor hours. You can see basically it shows you your percent of completion with respect to those. Now on the shift chart, what this is showing us is the original contract versus the current contract. And this is maybe a silly example, but here you see my original contract was $1.5 million, and now it's $45 million. Well, I know that really doesn't happen in the real world, but this is demo data. The idea is that we've had a significant growth in our contract, and so that's what these bars are trying to show us. We already looked at the job analysis screen, but this is a good screen for if you want some numbers, some accounting numbers. You see the revised contract, our gross profit, our earned revenue amounts. You can see the costs and hours, job to date, what we project to happen at the end of the job, our contractual estimates. You see this is my customer, but there's actually 4 additional contracts here, so there's other people that this job actually gets billed out to. Down here I have a snapshot of the contract, my original contract plus change orders, and you can see some date information, and we already looked at the billing information. Contract status, this is just like your WIP. This is a running WIP report showing us our contract amount, And we do the high-level math, which we all joke that accountants for us, high-level math is division, and we love to show off and divide, so we divide and we figure out what our percent complete is, and we use that against the contract value. And we can get our earned revenue, we get our over and under billed. Now I know that terminology is changing with the new revenue recognition rules, but this screen still provides good value of information if you were doing a job that is continual transfer of ownership. I think that's the fancy way of saying percent of completion job. Okay, I'm going to go look at some properties of this job. So you can see I've got my phone numbers, my addresses, I've got my legal definition, which I use on my lien releases for both customers and vendors. I've got my GPS coordinates. If I want, I can see here's a map showing those GPS coordinates of where the project is located. Now, I'm going to go to the phase page. I want to point out that phases, some people call them cost codes, other people call them work breakdown structure codes, WBS codes. When you have a project, you break it up into little pieces. That's what we call phases. And so a phase will have things, will have a budget. You might have the ability to say that we're going to have, we're going to have a unit cost, we have our original quantity, hours, and dollars. And phases, we use these from our estimating package, and this is what the project manager uses to manage the project. As costs come in, how did we do against the budget? So on this screen, I can either create a new phase using this window, the same kind of idea where I just fill out the form, or I can actually, this is a grid, and I can fill out the numbers here on the screen as well. Now, depending on your preferences, I'm just going to make it a little simpler here. I can control what columns I see on this grid here. So when I show this, I can show you that these are my data entry fields that I'm selecting to use. They're still out there. Those fields are still out there. I've just hidden them for purposes of data entry. Okay, so this is really just a way to create budgets for the project. And as we create change orders and change requests, we will modify these budgets accordingly. Now every project has people that you want to talk to, that you need to talk to on this job, and so the idea is we have a contact log here. So if we look at, let's go ahead and look at Joyce Baker. Joyce works for this Hawkins Electrical Company. You can see that she doesn't have a title. Of course I choose somebody that doesn't have a title, so we'll give her one. President. Any remarks? Nice person. You can categorize them with attributes. Attributes are ways you can search on later. Maybe they're they're a project manager, and you can go ahead and say, and then you can search for project managers in the future. You've got a place to store your unlimited phones, your unlimited addresses for this person. You can see what projects that this person is assigned to. When we do things like RFIs or field questions, submittals, transmittals, this contact log comes into play because I can say I want this to go to Joyce, and we can email whatever the document is to her, provided we've set up the email address here in on the contact log. Now, this contact log, it's not just job specific. So here's probably a better example. So we have James Bond. So here's James Bond. He's a customer. It's we have a couple different phone numbers here, and then he's got a couple of different, looks like there are Portland offices, a different office as well. So you see that we've got his email address on here and all that good stuff. If I was to send James an RFI, it would email it to this email address right here. And again, this is a system-wide database. So as I update this customer and update the customer's addresses, it updates James and everybody else that works at his organization as well. Moving on. The dates page is exactly what you think it would be. We're going to show you the estimated starting and ending date, the projected ending date, when we started the project, when we actually completed the project, and some milestone dates such as when did we start certified payroll, when was our last payroll date, our last costing or billing dates. And so this is just a snapshot to show you all of the various dates that we have on the project. we have a heavy equipment module where you can charge your bulldozers, backhoes, etc. to the project. And you can choose to charge them at at a rate that covers the ownership and operating costs of the asset. You can also say, well, even though the standard rate is good that I've come up with that covers these, this person's going to, or this piece of equipment is going to be working in a place that maybe is a little rough and it's going to beat the heck out of the machine, so we're going to charge a higher rate, and so you can say, you can set job-specific heavy equipment rates here. We can import those phases that I talked about. You can actually import them in from a spreadsheet or from a variety of estimating packages like AccuBid, HCSS, and so on. The idea is that you bring them, that you import them here into Spectrum in this place here, you modify and manipulate them, and when you're ready to go, you go ahead and update them, and we can, this process not only can set up your phases with their budgets, it can set up your subcontracts, and your schedule of value AIA billing items. Okay, we've got a few things just like you would expect. What kind of job is this? What's our earned revenue kind of going to be here? When we get into payroll setup, what work state, county, or local are you working in? Is this a prevailing wage job? Do you have specific burden rules? And do you have specific wage rate rules that you want to use here? Okay, and last but not least, I'm kind of jumping through a lot of this, but we can, you know, one of the ways we have to bill a project is if it's a time and material job, we can go ahead and track all of those costs that come in, and then we can go ahead and turn around and bill the customer. And this is where we're setting up that this is my sales tax and my billing rates and my billing transactions. Once all of this has been set up, then the system, we start tracking our costs. You know, payroll is going to be, you're going to charge your employee time to a job phase cost type, and it's going to end up showing up in here. So here, this is an example of one of those new technologies that we have. It's a tree grid, and so you can see I'm just drilling down to these various things. When I'm sitting here drilling down, I can also, if I find a manner or a setup of the screen that I like, I can export it to Excel if I want to. And the reason you would do that is, let's be honest, our project management folks love Excel. They absolutely love Excel, and they really want to be able to use it. So here, let's just. So the idea is that you can download this information, and here's that same information we just saw with the little expander collapse things. Oops, enable editing. Now, the idea here is that, again, they can download the information that they want, and they can do whatever they want with it. And that's kind of the idea. Now, another thing you can do is on this info bar, you notice I have some saved selections. I'm going to just click this by phase version, and this is the same set of data, but I've just changed the way it's being presented. So here, instead of it being by cost type and then by phase, it's by phase and by cost type. You can have a million of these things. I have a here's an option that says projected costs are greater than the estimate. And so in Spectrum, the estimated cost, here I've got $50,000, that's the contractual budget that we had budgeted out. The projected cost is what the project manager is deeming or believes the projects that come in at the end of the job. And you can see here we have a $100,000 variance. We are over budget by $100,000. So I created this filter that basically said these are the phases that have potential profit fade. Okay. Likewise, you can, these are the pieces of heavy equipment that have been delivered or assigned to this project. Another tree grid that you can manipulate. Job cost history. So as the project goes on, people want to slice and dice their data in a variety of ways. And so if you look here, you see these are my transactions. These are AP, the type. These are the descriptions. You've got all sorts of information, vendor codes, invoice numbers. You can do a lot of stuff with this so that you can understand what the heck we've got here. Now notice I'm just taking my column and dragging it down to the sort bar, and I can say, okay, here's my AP invoice vendor stuff, and you can see these are the various vendors. Oops, I didn't grab it. I thought I did. There we go. And so, you know, you can get pretty creative here. And the idea is that we're trying to make this as simple and easy for you to use. And so here I just created this view of job cost history that is showing me all of my costs by the group and then by vendor. Granted, when we get into employee costs, there are no vendors, but you get the idea, just to see the flexibility here. Now, one thing is if I can drill into the details. Oops, oh, that's right, payroll transactions are not history. One of the things that I can do in this is that I can drill into the transaction to look at it more. So if I come back into my materials transaction and then click details to drill down, oh, somebody messed up my data. Oh, you know, it's my own fault. I didn't play with this beforehand. Okay, well, we're going to move on. One thing I didn't talk much about is we have document imaging. And we were early on in the imaging game in the construction, accounting, project management realm. And I'm really happy to say that we've continued to keep on the cutting edge here. And so what you have here is, as I click these different transactions, it's going to call up the various images associated with them. If the transaction, if we don't have an image in there, we can add one from here. We can add them in a variety of places. And you're going to see as we go throughout that imaging is a critical part in Spectrum. And anytime you see this kind of bar here, this is our slider bar, this is where you will be able to view the images as well as add them and so forth. Now, some people, if you had two monitors, if I had two monitors like I do here, I can use this little pop-out button, and it's going to pop out this picture, this pane, into its own browser pane so I can look at the actual image. Okay, it's much bigger, I can do stuff with it. Now, just so everybody knows, you can grab that browser pane and I can drag it over to another monitor. So I can have my monitor 2, I can have this Spectrum be on monitor 1 and the images be on monitor 2, and I can do my data entry from there. Okay. So let's continue on here. Looks like Becky, can you hear us now? I wonder, did we lose did our internet connection kind of get a little silly? Ping us back one way or the other if you would. Thanks, Becky. Oops. So again, you'll notice that I have all these different tabs up here. These are, we call these Spectrum tabs. And basically the idea is that you can have as many of these open as you need to see the information that you have. And quite frankly, I love this because how many times are we working on something and our boss comes up and says, hey, I need to know X. Well, you just open up a new tab and you can look up and find out what you need, but you didn't lose where you were on your other projects. Okay, there's a few more of these pages here. Job payables, that is your pay when paid. You can see this job, these are invoices that were waiting for payment. They've been released to be paid. It's like an approval process for payment. And so you can set these things up. You can set these up, and on this project, we set them up that AP invoices will not be automatically released, but they'll be flagged for review once we get to 75% of the non-retention stuff. Okay. Again, you've got the slider bar, so if we have imaging, if these guys have an image, you can look at the actual image that created these, or that were responsible, or the backup for these. Job requisitions are inventory transactions that we want to charge to the job. This is a way to take, if you have inventory, you can take inventory out. The materials tab is going to show us some of our buyout information. You're going to see things that we've ordered from purchase orders, POs, or any inventory that we've ordered from our warehouse. Now, depending on your security, you can create a new purchase order from here. You can create a new job requisition from here. You can also drill into the details as you see fit. We talked a little bit about some contracts already. The projected cost screen, I skipped over that, I didn't mean to. Again, projections, that is where the project manager says, this is where we're going to come in on the project at the end of the project. This is where I think we're going to, the job's going to come in at. And so the idea is that you can come in and say, well, based on math, we said this is 14.9% complete. Well, we're really 25% done, and so it changes the dollars to complete and the dollars at completion. The project manager might say, hey, we have an issue. I'm going to raise the budget up to $50,000, and of course it calculates the other fields. Now, this expanded version of it, what this is for is in the scenario that you want to track the hours, the dollars per hour, any quantities per unit, units per hour, and the idea here is that if you make a change, say the hours, I say I'm 85% done of these hours here. Well, if I said, no, I'm really only 74% done, notice it recalculates all of my math. I can also say that my dollar per hour, it's not $430.49, it's really 65 bucks an hour. And so it recalculates everything based on that value. Now, as in math, there's always an order of operations that we need to follow, and that is user definable. And so here we say when the dollars are changed, I want you to recalculate the hours or the dollars per hour. And you can change this as many times as you want as you're building your projected costs. So the idea is that you get to determine what fields change. So in that scenario where I changed my my dollars per hour, I'm going to change it. I said I wanted to change the dollars for the project, and you could have forced out the hours as well. Again, these are the values that we're going to use in WIP. Again, when we're doing our WIP report, you can run them based on the estimates, which come from your contracts and your estimate in the beginning and the changes to that estimate, or you can base your WIP report on these projections your project manager does. In theory, these should be more accurate because the project manager is using their skill and knowledge and where they think the job's going to be coming in at. Okay, in the documents section, we already took a look a little bit at the images here. I'm just going to kind of jump through a few of these. So in the images, again, you've got a list of all of the various files or pictures that are associated with this project. And so if I scan down, so you can have Word docs, you can have pictures, you can have PDFs. Now, here we go. This was in Seattle, this was the light rail at the SeaTac airport. CFMA did a job site tour there for everybody. It was really cool. So we got to go hang out up there. I enjoyed it a ton. The idea is you can save whatever kind of information you want here. Now I'm going to click on this large document example. This is a 30-page document. And notice here we get the first page, and as I scroll down, you see the little squiggles are still downloading. Everything's still downloading in the background. Well, if I click on the last page, it stops what it's doing and it goes and gets the last page. Now it's still downloading in the background. This is called AJAX, Asynchronous JavaScript. And what that means is, what it really means to us end users is the downloads appear faster because once it downloads a page or two, you can start reading it and doing whatever you want with it, and it just keeps downloading the rest in the background. So that is an example of one of these new technologies that I really, really like. It gives us a lot of power. If you're at a job site where the internet connection might not be the strongest and you are trying to access Spectrum, you can, it's still, the images will still come across the line. Now the project log, this is where we store all of our RFIs and transmittals and submittals. And the idea is, again, we're using the same kind of tree grid technology. You might have, let's go ahead and call one of these guys up. We're using HTML5, which is just a way of saying this is a style of form, and it goes back to the what you see is what you get for those of us that are old enough to remember the WYSIWYG stuff. But the idea is that you can fill out this form. You've got a place to put in your unlimited text, etc. And when I save it or preview it, I can then email it. And then when I email it, it's going to go to all of those people that were automatically on the list. Now these are the assigned related documents. So this RFI, this is the other kinds of correspondence and transmittals and stuff that goes with it, I'm going to include it. So it's going to give me my RFI printed, and then it's also building. What it's also doing is it's building data in the background. So here's that same file, but what I want to point out is notice it's one of 33. Well, there wasn't 33 pictures there. This was the backup. Remember that screen I said I wanted to take the backup with me? Here's all of the backup that goes with this RFI, and it's all stored in one PDF. And so when I email this PDF, if I click email, it's going to launch an email form. I don't remember if I have my email set up or not. Yep, I do. So here are all of their email addresses. And I can add more text here, and I can go ahead and email this off. The system will log this as a transmittal. So the idea is that the RFI, or field question, or submittal, can have you can add images and supporting backup onto them. When you send them out, if you decide to send them out, you can go ahead and mark that this information is public. And just as, because someone had asked me this the other day, so here is this document here. If this was something that you did not want to send out, all you would do is you'd click the little padlock here. And now this image, this page will be excluded or will not be included in any emails. It'll be effectively hidden. It's internal use only. Okay. Let's go look at changes. Now, contracts over their life change, and in Spectrum we call these change requests. A change request can be proposed, meaning we don't really know if we're going to do it or not. It might be a cost revision where we just want to move costs around and move it from this phase to another phase. It could be something that we got an approval to do this, and we'll send the stuff later. We'll send the backup later, but we've worked with these people forever, and or it's a done deal and we can bill for it. So all of these things are the building blocks for a change request that then can get rolled into a change order. So issues with column 4, I can create a change order from here. Up here is my summary of the cost breakdowns. And so as I start making changes down here, my this will all recalculate. These are the documents that are associated with this. So if I say add item, I want to add an RFI, and we're going to choose this one and this one and this one. So those RFIs are now the underlying reason for this change. Okay, and I click the cost tab, and this is where I come in and I say these are the changes to my budget, the changes to my costs. Now I can, depending on my security, I can type in whatever, I can type in a phase, I can open a search window, to find a phase, I can, all this good stuff. I can also just type in a few characters, so we'll say 77, 88, 50, there we go. I just wanted something I knew I didn't have before, and we're going to say materials, and it's going to say, hey, do you want to add a new phase? Now I have security to add a phase to Spectrum, so I'm prompted with this. So this is that same window we saw earlier where I can come in and say, we need more coffee at job site, oops, and material, and I can put in my budget. This is what I think it's going to cost. We need some good coffee, so that should be enough. And I go ahead and say OK. Now, that's all it took to get that phase cost type on this, and so I can come in, and I already set up a budget for $25,000. This change, I'm going to say, well, I really want it to be $35,000, etc. And you can fill this out if it's a subcontract change. You can add comments and so forth. Now notice, because I added that money, the takeoff total changed, and of course all of the markups, add-ons, and fees changed down as well. So let's look at the markups. The markup says, in this case, it's 25% of cost type M. Markups can be added. You can add as many markup types as you would like. These were set up ahead of time. Your add-ons, these could be some contractual things, like maybe you get to charge them for sales tax. Okay, so we're going to charge them for sales tax. I have to give it a phase to charge this to, and then it'll start just keeping the running total. Now my fee is at 15%. Maybe we negotiate that instead of 15, it's only going to be 7.5%, and that lowers the value as well. On the billing tab, you see that without anything else, my estimate cost of this with my markups, add-ons, and fees is this $86,752. I can send that value out to the customer, and if they say sure, then we'll take it. If not, I can always go ahead and add in what exactly I want it to be, and then of course I can change my statuses. Now these statuses in Spectrum matter. Well, here, before I do that, I want to point out that we have a notes page, unlimited notes, font control, spelling, all that good stuff, as well as you've got the date tracking from in here as well. Now, I was talking about the status. The statuses are user definable, but the bottom line is these are the things that they do. And this all is WIP impacts. So this is the kind of stuff that we accountants love. If it's a proposed, proposed change, there's no recognition of revenue or cost. If it's executed, we do have revenue and cost, and you can see we've got different variations in here. You can have as many of these statuses as you want. They also have security on them, so as a user, you can only use certain ones. Okay. So as time goes by, we've got our change request log. I can actually go over to the change order log and look at the change orders that we have on this project already, and I could create a new one. So here are all of my change orders, and if I want to just create, say, a new one, I can just go ahead and say new. Again, I'm just getting another Spectrum tab across the top. It's going to auto-number it for me. Okay. And I can say this is what we agreed to. I know that's not really what you say, but that. And then again, you have those statuses that control your WIP impact. I'm going to say this is a done deal. It's executed. So I get to put in my approved date. I get an extra 2 days. And then it says, what was the underlying change request that brought this on? So I can come back and I can look at these, and there is this guy right here. Oh, must have all these. There are rules of what you can, how we try to protect you from making mistakes. There are, okay, so I just added this one in here, this expedite fees. The other item we hadn't finished the setup on it, so that's why it wasn't coming in. But so again, from the change order, I can drill into the change request. The change request has RFIs, field questions, even submittals that back it up. And so you can drill backwards all you want. You see the costs that we agreed to, and if there are any markup, add-ons, and fees, and you can see that for whatever reason, we're deciding to bill this out at 0, which I'm not really a fan of, and that's why the billing adjustment has this big red warning icon that we're basically, there's a billing adjustment that's lowering your revenue. But I guess that's the way life is sometimes. Okay, any questions about the change order and change request process? Again, notice I've got my info bars here, and I'm in the contract. I can look at the customer and see what the customer owes me, or what they owe me for this job. But I can also go back to my job, and I see all of this good stuff as well. Okay, we go to reports. And let's just go to cost history. I showed you that tree grid with the job cost history. These are our reports. We use Crystal Reports as our print report engine, and there's a variety of options you have on your reports here. And you have these saved selections, so notice as I select different things, they're choosing, I'm basically memorizing different settings here. I can include POs and payroll and process, etc. The idea is that when you preview the report, we're going to generate it and present it here on the screen. From here you can email it, print it, you can even archive it in our imaging system, so you always have a copy of it. Okay, so we talked more about jobs and contract changes. I want to go back and take a look at some other areas, and one of those is in, let's just go to accounts payable. Everybody loves AP. Maybe not, but everybody has bills we have to pay. So this screen is what we call invoice approval, and on invoice approval, AP received an invoice in, and here it is. Here's the charge line down below. You see it's this GL code, dollars, this job phase and cost type. I can change that coding if I wanted to, because I'm allowed to. I can review the underlying image so I can see the invoice that generated this data entry. And the idea is that, of course, I can prove out that this is, okay, yeah, I guess that, oh, that is me. I can add a note. I can change, and then I can say I want to go ahead and approve it. And when you say approve it, it's going to sit there and wait until I say update now. When I update now, it will take that invoice and it will send it to the next person in the approval process until it'll continue until the invoice comes back as a fully approved item that then gets booked into the system. Now here, you notice we're into this webinar 40 minutes, and this is the first time I've shown you the menu system. One of the things that we worked really hard on was we wanted the ability to not have to make you go to a typical menu system, and that's why we have the info bars and the favorites and so forth. Sometimes it's just easier if you know where the screen is, you can go straight there, and that's perfectly fine. I want to look at a vendor invoice real quick, and first of all, here's the checkbox where you choose whether it's going to be approved or not. That has security on it. You might always have it selected if that's what you wanted to do. You can enter the vendor code. These little drop-down arrows mean you have search windows. You can also, I know the vendor's in Seattle, so I'm going to type the words, hit the word Seattle, and it's going to say, hey, I didn't find Seattle, but I found these vendors. Which one was it? And you're like, oh, there they are right there. You've got your vendor invoice number. It's an invoice or credit memo. Is this associated with a purchase order or not? Is this associated with a subcontract or not? And then you start filling out the remaining part of the screen. You've got your dates, you've got the total before tax, so we'll say $100, and I've got 9.5% tax, my estimated payment date. There's no retention on this, it's not on hold. I can put in an invoice remark here where I can say for supplies or whatever it was. F3 will get me out of this as well. And now I'm down here. Now notice my $100 has been split evenly, and that's because on this vendor somebody set up that I want to take 50% of it and book it to this GL code and another 50% to this GL code, because we always pay this bill, and 50% of it goes to the utility for the construction group and 50% of it goes to the utility for maybe our service group. So maybe a silly example because it really didn't work as I wanted to, but the idea is the same. If I put in a GL code that I know is job costed, I'm going to go ahead and say $5, the system is going to require that I put in a job number. Okay, so I can go ahead and say this is for job 300. I can enter one of those phases that I know, and I can continue entering through the system, changing things like remarks and sales tax, use tax, etc. Okay, so when I save, I'm at a balance, and so I can say that I want to change the $100 to 105 by saying set to detail. And I can say I want to, I'm going to allocate or set my sales tax to the detail as well. And then, in this way, it helps, the system helps you balance and protect yourself from bad keystrokes. So AP invoices, of course, you can pay your invoices. You can pay a bill, you know, with your computer printed checks. You can record, you can do instant checks. You can record that you paid this with a credit card. We link with ComData. If you want to pay via ComData, as we go through the payment processing, there's an export to ComData, and then you bring the data back from them. So we record we paid it that way. You can also pay your vendors via ACH if you're in the US or in Canada as well. Okay. I just want to point out a couple of things in payroll. Payroll, we all joke, if it wasn't for payroll, we'd have more competition in our space. And because of the complexities of construction payroll, we don't. And so let's just look at some of these. This is a list of my employees here. And so we'll go into this guy. And again, we have an info bar. I can look at his main information, personal information, pay rates, and so forth. And so the idea in the payroll world, we have all of this good information. What union does he belong to? What type of craft do they normally work on? Their hiring information. What types of pay rates do we pay this guy? Does he have a special override pay rate? What's his history of pay? Does he have direct deposit set up? What's his tax setup? All of this is controlled over in payroll, and so you can get all of this configured. Now, when we look at the financials area, I can look at the summary tab, and this is where it's going to say this is what he's made this year, year to date, quarter to date, month to date. I have a question here I want to make sure I answer real quick. Norm asked, is Dexter and Cheney the desktop version of Spectrum? Dexter and Cheney is our company name, and Spectrum is our product. Mark Dexter and John Cheney started this company about 30 years ago and named it after themselves, and we've been going ever since. Dexter has retired, but John Cheney still comes into the office all the time. Okay, so let's, cancel. I wanted how that works. I took us to the payroll processing, and here's where you can enter time for this employee. Now I could have gotten here via the navigation system as well, but the idea is that as I come in, it's going to default to, well, this guy is normally a job guy, so okay, it's that job. I can put in a phase. It's a certified job, so I've got to put in a date, and then it defaults in his wage information, union affiliations, your work state, county, and local tax codes, and then I get to the hours field. And if I hit enter, on a certified job, the guy may work the same job and phase for the week. So we can come in and quickly just say he worked 40 hours, and it will code it to these various days. Of course, it's silly because I said my work week started on a Saturday, which is probably not the case, but again, I live in a demo data world. So by doing that, in that scenario, I just created my week's worth of time card lines, and you would go on to the next one. You notice we have document imaging over here. If you want, you can attach the time cards that the supporting backup for this, and then it is available everywhere, whether you look at this in time card history or you look at this from the job in job cost history, you would see Jay Buhner's time card scanned. Okay. We've talked about payroll, we've talked about AP, a couple other things just to kind of point out. We have a service module, a work order module, and in the world of service, service is one of those crazy creative worlds, and by that I mean if you have a service department, you know this, but if you go talk to the dispatcher or dispatchers, they have one phone in each ear. They have somebody standing over their desk, and they've got all these other people waiting for information, and somehow they juggle it. I honestly don't know how they do it. I'm always amazed by them. So the idea here in Spectrum is that we have a work order module. You can charge instead of charging your labor, your payroll time, or your AP invoice or whatever to a job, you charge it to a work order, and the costs all show here, and then you can bill for them. Same kind of idea that we have over in in job costs. So if payroll was processed and I had time card lines for this work order, they would show up here. Same with AP invoices and other charges. Otherwise, I can enter them in this is the other option, is I can enter them in here and say the guy, he started at 8, he quit at 12, so that's 4 hours. I can accept the defaults. So you can see here is I'm going to bill the customer, his taxability comes in based on the customer setup. And when I am done with this work order, I can then update it over to the payroll system. So if I can either enter the data in payroll and have it push here, or I can enter the data here and have it push to payroll. Same thing happens with material. I can either enter it in AP or I can enter it in the material entry screen and we push one way or the other. When the work is done, you can create that invoice so that you can get that out the door. The idea is that the faster you can get these invoices generated, the faster you can get the bill out the door, the faster you guys get paid for the work you did. So here you can see I have 260 bucks. I've got some other costs in here. I can bill now, and basically what this is going to do is it's going to create the invoice, and I can print the work order invoice if I want to and then email it to the customer. But the idea is that I'm just going to bill this right now, and so it's created an invoice over, and here's the information, and it's printed but not yet updated, and I can choose, it will get updated in the system and get processed, and we receive our cash on later as well. Okay, now we have a couple of options to do mobile service. We have a field tech module that when you're connected, you can connect into Spectrum's work order module, and as a technician you'll see things that are assigned to you. The idea, and if for some reason, if you need the ability to work on service in a disconnected world, we actually partner with people that like Field Connect. They have an offline application that then will use web services to send data to us. And that is one thing too. Web services are just a fancy way of saying one computer talks to another computer. Okay, let's see, a couple other things to point out. Of course, in General Ledger, in the GL we have that same, those tree grids once again. And tree grids, you can see here are your various transactions. If you wanted to know more about what was in this, I can say, show me the year-to-date information. It opens up the same tree grid, but in its detail version. And so here, you can see the source. This was an AP payment. This was a job cost transaction, a journal entry, some AR cash receipts. And you can drill into the source. You can look at the budget and so forth. And if they had images with them, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but if they had images associated with them, you would see the images here as well. Okay. Dexter and Cheney, we have been selling Spectrum, I said, for 30 plus years. We are in the United States and in Canada. We have a multi-currency module, so we can handle the local currency versus your reporting currency. We handle payroll and the payroll taxes and such for Canada as well. So if you're a Canadian organization, you can definitely use Spectrum to manage all of that good stuff. Okay, last I wanted to show you purchase orders, and again this is just a high-level kind of look. When I create a purchase order, the idea is that I'm going to say who the vendor is, and so we're going to call Ballard Office Supply. I know the vendor code, so I just typed it in. I could have searched. This is either going to be for a job or for a warehouse or a work order, and I'm saying it's a job, so we're going to put it to good old job 300. Is it a proposed work order or is it open? The only difference here is that if it's proposed, you cannot actually receive goods on it. If it's open, you can. Okay, this is your PO. This is the header information. Payment terms, special instructions, where you want it shipped to. This is more information like if do you have any sales or use tax rules, invoice approval routing. Are you going to just do what we call the one-step method or two-step method? The two-step method is really your three-way match. Was this purchased with a credit card? Do you need to leave yourself a note? And then you get into this grid. And here I can type either D or M, D for detail. So I'm going to want 5, and I want coffee. So it did a quick search and found coffee filters. Okay, we'll take it. So I want 5 of those coffee filters. That's my unit price. They're really expensive. And this is going to go to this GL code. If it was a job cost to GL code, I'd be required to put in the job phase cost type. If it was heavy equipment, I'd be required to put in that equipment code. If it was a work order, I'd be required to put in the work order code. and my tax codes and all of that type of stuff. Now, we do have some shortcuts I want to stress here. So let's just say I want to have 10. I'm going to use an exclamation point, and this is a non-stock item. This is just stuff that I'm never going to buy again. It's a one-off. It's a custom widget, so to speak. Okay, and when I get to the GL code, I'm going to window. Oh, I'm in the wrong. Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm still in the sales version. They did not turn this on. We have functionality that for those folks, you can create quick codes where you could say, you could put in the letter M, and you could have it be materials, a material geocoded. J would be job, and all that type of stuff. So they obviously haven't turned it on. I'm using the sales site here, so no wonder why it's giving me some problems. Now, again, as you order all of this stuff, I want to point out that we've got our purchase order info bar, and here's our vendor info bar, and if you're buying stuff for the warehouse, here's your warehouse info bar. So I can turn around and say, well, how much do we owe this vendor already? And so I can say, show me the open items page. And I can be taken directly to that, where I can look at the invoice, I can look at the, I can also look at the payments that were made to this vendor over time. None. We never pay these people. That's not a good thing. So I'm hoping I'm showing you guys what you're looking for here. The idea is that with this technology we call the info bar, we can take this giant system and make it easy for everyone to navigate around. In the olden days, we had, the typical menu system like everybody else does, and we have found that by using this info bar, the system is so much easier to grasp and to be able to figure out really quick. Even our existing users that have been with us for the 30 years, they made the transition very easily, I'm very pleased to say. So we're almost to the top of the hour. Are there any other questions that you guys have? Okay, well guys, I really appreciate that you spend the time with us today. If you have any other questions, we'll be reaching out to you. Let us know. We're happy to answer any of them and tell you more about Spectrum. So you guys have a great one and have a great rest of your day.